And now, it gives me great pleasure to welcome another woman we can all aspire to follow, our new UNT Provost, Dr. Jennifer Cowley.
Thank you, Celeste. We have much to celebrate as Women's History Month this month at the University of North Texas. UNT has made great strides in celebrating and promoting the role of women in all academic and professional fields, including the women we are here to recognize and hear from this evening. In 2017, women made up 52% of the total undergraduate enrollment at UNT, and this number is even higher at the graduate level at 60%. And women make up a large and ever-growing percentage of our overall UNT faculty, 459 out of the 1,075 faculty last year. And at the Mayborn School, women fill more than half of all faculty roles, sharing a powerful and unique perspective with the school's mostly female population. It's important to acknowledge that we now have our first female chancellor, Lisa Rowe, and I'm honored to serve as the Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs. In addition, Judith Forney in the College of Merchandising, Hospitality, and Tourism is our longest serving dean, having served for 20 years. UNT has recently added a number of female deans, including our College of Business, our UNT Libraries, and UNT International. It is especially pleasing to note that our North Texas Daily most recent Student Choice Awards named Mayborn's Dorothy Bland as the best dean at the university. Congratulations to Dorothy. And all of this is remarkable given that up until a few decades ago, women made up a very small percentage of our overall UNT community of administrators. We're proud to see that UNT is rapidly growing to mirror our majority student population, and we're making great strides in this area and will continue to push even harder in the near future to ensure that our university looks more and more like the communities that we serve. With that, I'd like to welcome Dorothy Bland, Dean of the Frank W. and Sue Mayborn School of Journalism, to say a few words.
Thank you, Provost Cowley. What began as an oral history assignment in one of Dr. Tracy Everbach's graduate courses has produced a treasure trove of histories of women who largely pioneered journalism and abound in the Dallas area and far beyond. These oral histories are archived in the Portal to Texas History at our Willis Library just across the courtyard. We are especially proud that many of these pioneering women have ties to the University of North Texas, and even better, to the Mayborn School of Journalism. At this time, I'd like to ask all students, faculty, and staff of the Mayborn to please stand. Take a good look. Look around you. Let's celebrate each of you and our diversity. You all deserve a terrific round of applause. You can have a seat now. We are tremendously pleased to note that many of our student leaders at the Mayborn, from the presidents of our student organizations to the editor of the North Texas Daily, to our leading award winners and scholars, are young women. You are already making a tremendous difference, and we are extremely proud of you. The provost shared a few numbers that highlight the importance of women in our family. Tonight, we are here to celebrate pioneering female journalists. These are women who have played and continue to play important roles in shining the light of journalistic truth into darkness, corners, and helping to strengthen our democracy. While we are making great strides in the field of journalism, there is far more work to be done. And I'd just like to share with you a few statistics. Did you know that women make up 47% of the total U.S. labor force, yet we still lag far behind in leadership roles in almost all areas of government and business? According to the Pew Research Center, the gender gap for women is real. Recent studies show that women earn 83 cents for every dollar men earn for doing the same jobs in the United States. Yeah, I'd cry about that too. Thank you. In the working world of journalism, you, the next generation, have an opportunity to help us continue to push even further. Women currently make up only 32% of the typical newsroom today. Crystal Williams, Chancellor of the Women's Media Center, says that the percentage for women of color is even more dire, and I can testify to that truth. They say that journalists write the rough first drafts of history, and so it is increasingly important that women play a role in chronicling who we are as a nation and as people. So we're here tonight to acknowledge a few of our notable history drafters. Beyond this, we're documenting Women's History Month by celebrating many other pioneering journalists. Across the plaza at the Willis Library, we have installed a special exhibit that features the profiles of a dozen legendary female reporters, writers, filmmakers, and journalists. The exhibit will be on display until April 10th up on the second floor of the Willis Library. So I encourage you to stop by and help us carry the celebration forward. Do you happen to have a favorite woman journalist or story of how females in the media have made a difference? That's great. We want to hear about them. Please share those highlights with us at hashtag Mayborn Women with Words. Let me say that again, hashtag Mayborn Women with Words. With that, I'm confident that the Mayborn's Associate Professor, Dr. Tracy Everbach, who also leads the UNT Women's Faculty Network, and our distinguished panelists can give us some insights into the work that has been done and the work that remains to be done. I'm reminded of something that Gwen Eiffel, my friend and an amazing journalist, once said, and that is, change comes from listening, learning, caring, and conversation. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Tracy Everbach to introduce our panelists and lead this evening's discussion. Dr. Everbach?
Hi, thank you for coming. The Women with Words project began in 2012 in a graduate level class that I teach. Students were assigned to find women who had made a mark on Texas journalism and media and conduct oral histories on their lives. Some of the women I knew personally from being a Texas journalist in the late 1980s and in the 1990s. Others were recommended by friends and acquaintances, and some the students found on their own. We currently have 23 oral histories in the Portal to Texas History collection, and 4 more from this past semester are waiting to be archived. Sadly, 2 subjects, Vivian Castleberry and Celeste Williams, have passed away since we recorded their stories. Today, we're thrilled to have 4 legendary Texas journalists here on the stage with us. You will note that Beatriz Terrazas is on the program. She's an amazing writer and visual storyteller. She was supposed to be here today, but like many working journalists, she got called away to an assignment in Seattle. So at the last minute, she had to cancel, but we still have 4 wonderful women, Katie Sherrod, Gail Reeves, Carolyn Barta, and Leona Allen. I will introduce them one by one. Leona Allen, come on out, Leona. Yay, Leona! Leona Allen is a member of the editorial board at the Dallas Morning News. She's an alumna of the University of North Texas, where she majored in journalism, and she worked at the NT Daily as an undergraduate. After graduation, she worked for a community newspaper and for the Dallas Times-Herald, which is when I got to meet her. We used to compete on stories. And then she worked for the Akron Beacon Journal, where she was part of a Pulitzer Prize-winning team that won the Public Service Prize in 1994. The series examined segregation and racial attitudes in the community and sought to improve communication among the community. She then returned to Texas to work for the Dallas Morning News, and she has been a journalist there for 24 years. We also have Carolyn Barta. Carolyn was one of the first women in Texas to become a political reporter. She began her career in 1961 after graduating from Texas Tech University's journalism program. She worked for a short time in Hawaii, and then she joined the Dallas Morning News. Refusing to be shuttled into the women's section of the paper, which is what they had then in the 60s, She worked her way up through the ranks as a general assignment reporter and an education reporter to cover state politics. She eventually became a national correspondent. She also later wrote books on billionaire Ross Perot and former Texas Governor Bill Clements. Along the way, she earned a master's in journalism from the University of Texas at Austin. And her second career was as a professor of practice in journalism at SMU, the campus where she once ran into her friend, W. Bush, yes, the former president, on campus just after his presidency ended in 2009. When he saw her, he offered to come speak to her students, and he fulfilled his promise. He came to come talk to her class at SMU. We have Gail Reeves. She's known to many of you as a professor here at UNT, where she teaches Intro to Media Writing and Principles of Journalism. She's a longtime Texas journalist who graduated from the journalism program at the University of Texas at Austin. She worked for the Austin Citizen, the Austin American Statesman, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, the Dallas Morning News, and she's the former editor-in-chief of the Fort Worth Weekly. She also has a master's degree from the Mayborn School of Journalism here at UNT. Yay. I worked with Gail for several years at the Dallas Morning News and knew her as a talented investigative reporter and who was always an advocate for women, and she was always one of my role models. She led a 1994 Pulitzer Prize-winning team that won the International Reporting Award for a series on violence against women and human rights around the world. And she was also a 1990 finalist for the Pulitzer Prize for a series on hidden wars around the world. And then we have Katie Sherrod. Katie Sherrod has worked as a writer, producer, and commentator in Fort Worth for more than 30 years. She's been a champion for women in media, speaking out against family violence and advocating for women's reproductive freedom since the 1970s. She's a graduate of the University of Houston. She's worked as a columnist for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, a documentary filmmaker, and appears on Inside Texas Politics on WFAA television. She wrote and produced a documentary on Freedman Cemetery Memorial in Dallas, a desecrated burial ground for former slaves transformed into a monument for African American heritage. And she also worked on a documentary on LGBTQ Anglican Christians in Africa. She says her passion is to use her access to media platforms to give voice to the voiceless, the powerless, and the marginalized. So these are our panelists. I'm going to ask them a few questions, and we will leave some room for you to ask questions to them at the end. Okay, so now I have to find my list of questions. Okay, so I reviewed the oral histories of these women that are in the portal to Texas history, and I was struck by the fact that Carolyn and Katie, who began their careers in the 1960s, were automatically ushered into the women's sections of the newspapers where they worked. At the time, women's sections focused on food, fashions, and furnishings, as well as society news, because at that time, that's what women were supposed to cover. Bored, Carolyn Barta tried to get out by applying for a job as a political writer and was told, you know, you can't go out onto the golf course and pick up tips, and you can't go to bars with the politicians, so we need to fill this job with a man. Are you shocked or no? She did eventually get the job she was looking for, but she had to share it with a man.